Anyway, the reason Hila's not here is because she made some kind of she made a comment. I made a video about it on Ethan Klein channel because I promised everybody that I'm not going to be talking about this stuff. Why can't I even find it? I typed, Ethan Klein. Okay, hold on. Ethan Klein channel. So I made a video. I was up really late last night because Hasan was attacking my wife, who I obviously support and defend against all ridiculous bullshit. And we made a video talking about, there was like a whole frenzy of activity because Hasan covered this of Hila saying Yoav Gallant was a good guy. And we explain all that. And if you are upset by that, if you're one of the people who was flooding our subreddit with, I'm a 12-year fan and I can't watch anymore because of this, then watch this. And then when you're done with it, I'm not going to say what I want to say.
Good job.
But welcome back to my fan. Come back, and we welcome you with open arms.
No, I don't think a lot of people are going to be coming back. All right, let's get into this. So Ethan Klein said that he was done talking about it, but he just can't help himself. And he makes a video about Hasan. So we're going to get into his introduction to the video, then we're going to watch the actual video, and then we have a lot of other stuff to get to. So I don't think this is going to be as long of a video.
You're ready to jump ship at the
oh my gosh, is this thing gonna pause? I don't think this is gonna be as long as the last video I made, but we still have a lot to get into. So let's just go over Ethan's introduction to this. I'm gonna speed it up.
Little misspeak. No, I don't know if it's a misspeak, but it's certainly a understandably poor choice of words in that moment. Check it out.
Yeah, it made. I like the video. It made a lot of sense. I understand the miss there.
Thanks a lot.
10 out of 10.
Oh, thanks. 10 out of 10. There it is. Check it out, guys. And it's called Hasan Piker's a Weasley Little Liar, which is warrant. It's a good title, and I'm just gonna show you one part when he. Oh, dude, I don't know what the fuck, man.
I told you what the fuck.
I know.
I can't make fun of the lighting. That's my lighting. Let's get into the actual video.
Anyway, I wanted to show you guys why it's called Hasan Piker is a Weasley Little Liar.
Oh, you want to show us that?
Yeah. Let me see if I can find it. I thought it was pretty accurate considering how he freaked the fuck out when somebody lied about him. But I think I did a pretty good
That's his iconic line.
I did a good
That's his catchphrase.
Yeah.
The band is psychotic to me, you know? I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
What a fucking liar. Hold on, let me go back.
Everybody.
God, that video is crazy. So that's where our head was at when we said that. But now people like Hasan are going on their channels and accusing us of supporting a war. Anyway, here's what Hasan said this evening about the clip that sent everybody into a frenzy.
Crazy. I just hate how Ethan is brigading smaller content creators like the D program because he couldn't get to you. It's fucking gross how he keeps picking smaller content creators that are just getting by, and he is sitting on his golden throne, just straight up harassment. I know, he's just...
By the way, D program was the channel that we were talking about on Thursday that we all agreed is fucking like unhinged psychotic freaks. And Hasan is defending them as how dare I insulted these poor little creators. Kind of interesting. I can't get over the fact that they keep fucking crying about me responding to these communities. Like, this is the biggest socialist podcast. They have like, they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Second Thought has 2 million subscribers. When can I respond to these people?
Okay, so the D program, let's just get into this. The D program has like, 72.3K subscribers.
Like aligning with all these
The D program has 72,000, so almost 73,000 subscribers. And if we search up Second Thought, who is a co-host on the D program podcast, he has 1.79 million subscribers. So a little bit of a larger channel. And if we take a look through Second Thought's content, what is it? Well, it's pretty clearly left-leaning, talking about fascism, talking about Project 2025, talking about surveillance states. But is it socialism? I don't think so. I think this is more of a channel combating right-wing thought and combating right-wing propaganda. And this makes a lot of sense where you would have a channel, the larger channel, like dedicated to attacking the enemy. And then you would have a podcast that has a much smaller audience. And that's talking about kind of your ideology and your kind of ideal political system that you'd be talking about. And when Ethan Klein talks about how the Deprogram podcast is the biggest socialist podcast out there, it has hundreds of thousands of subscribers. He is just lying about that, just straight up lying. Like, it's pretty easy to find out it has 73,000. And also, let's keep in mind, he never actually responded to the Deprogram podcast. Who did he respond to? He responded to people making Reddit posts in the Deprogram podcast subreddit. Big difference there. You can attack people for, you know, the posts that are made in their subreddit, but I don't think that's a road that Ethan really wants to be going down. I don't want to go down that road. Ethan has gone down that road before, but what can I say? I don't think it's a very productive thing to do.
Fucking drama peddlers like Keemstar and shit in an effort to try and get me fucking banned is psychotic to me, you know? I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a Weasley little fucking liar. He's just straight up lying. He's just lying right now. In fact, this is a lie that he keeps
Can I
saying.
be honest?
I'm somehow aligning myself with Keemstar.
I feel like you could have done it better. Like imitating the...
I mean, yeah, I could have hit the table harder, but I'm not as fucking...
No, I thought the table hit was fine. It's more the intonation that comes after.
I guess I mean, I was acting. I wasn't like actually enraged.
No, I know.
Where
But I
his
think that's
is-
why it comes across a little flat to me.
Sure.
You want to perhaps try again?
I could play it again. I don't want to do it right now.
Oh, okay.
You want to do it?
No, I just want to see if you want a second.
You do
take.
it.
Yeah, you do.
The Weasley little liar.
Yeah,
thing?
you do it.
now.
No,
Exactly.
I don't think I have it in me. I think you have it in you.
So just one thing about the Weasley liar thing, like, it's kind of weird. I know that's a meme that came out of Hasan's community, but it's not his catchphrase by any means. So it's kind of funny that that's something that they latched onto. Also, the lie, quote unquote, that Ethan's getting mad that Hasan told about him is that he aligned with Keemstar. And even if Ethan is saying that I didn't purposely like DM Keemstar and target Frogan together, we came up with attack patterns to attack her with. Even if Ethan didn't say that, it's kind of undeniable that he was kind of coming at Frogan from the same direction Keemstar was coming at her from. So in that sense, it's not a lie that he was aligned with Keemstar. So it's just funny that that's what he got so triggered by.
In fact, this is a lie that he keeps saying, is that I'm somehow aligning myself with Keemstar. Once again, I'll show you. I went and fished out the original stories. I was talking about...
All right, what is this? I mean, I'll get into this when we actually talk about the real video, but what does he say here? Be honest, you absolute effing losers. She literally said she hopes vets get PTSD, or is PTSD a brand of hummus? Ah, funny. I wonder which crowd is DMing her hate messages. Nice trying to avoid accountability for literally anything ever. Grow the F up. Also, close your public DMs, moron. Literally, all of us would have our DMs full of vile shit if we left it open. You are not special. So, what is this screenshot? H3 Productions, congratulations. This is your audience now. I wonder how your Muslim employees feel. I love Ethan's targeted harassment campaign. Okay, so these comments that he's screenshotting aren't even going after Frogan. These are people saying that Ethan's targeting her. I don't know what this is trying to prove, to be honest.
getting shit from a ton of conservatives for her wonderful remarks about hoping American...
So donut operator, is that guy conservative? This is 7.5 million views. Sadly, no one cares about anti-Semitism, but in America, people do care about veterans. Prob shouldn't have said that. Partner and Twitch streamer Frogan. Drew Pavlo, is he conservative? I don't know these people, so if Ethan's trying to say that they are the conservatives attacking her, like, I'll trust him on that, but I just can't say definitively.
From a ton of conservatives for her wonderful remarks about hoping American military men get PTSD. I was showing it to say it's not my fault that she's getting harassed when this clip of her is going mega viral on Twitter and being called out by the worst people on the internet.
Okay, Nick Merckx, he's more on the conservative side. I know Hasan's like kind of talked about him as being one of those conservative gamer bros.
Right? Look at, these are all conservative shitbags. These are,
This, by the way, this is all I said about Drama Alert, and he keeps saying that. It's fucking incredible that I'm like allied with Keemstar to try to get him
all
banned.
people that I disagree with.
What
and
a
have
Weasley
openly
little fucking liar.
said terrible things about, including
I mean, let's just be realistic about this. Ethan platformed this whole Frogan drama because he was trying to get her banned. He literally said she deserves a ban for doing this. And then she did get banned, and he kind of celebrated. He's like, okay, that's good. And these right-wing conservative guys are also attacking her. And maybe they're being disingenuous about the attacks that they're doing. Maybe the real reason they're attacking her is because she's Muslim, but they're talking about, they're talking about her take on that American soldiers deserve PTSD. But like effectively, they're doing the exact same thing Ethan's doing. Ethan platformed her for her PTSD comments. Now these people are platforming her for her PTSD comments, and platforming in the negative sense, shining a spotlight on it to encourage hatred towards her, hatred, harassment, negative consequences. Ethan literally wanted negative consequences to happen to her. He was shining a light on this, saying, Twitch, what are you doing? Why has this content creator not been punished for what she's saying here? And in that sense, he is very well aligned with Keemstar. So again, I don't know where, I think he just wanted to have a kind of manufacture a reason why he could copy Hasan's iconic line of "Weasley little liar," but it's still weird. I think it's weird.
Keemstar. So the way that he singles him out.
But anyway,
says,
we explained that Ela misspoke here in the beginning, and then I have some fresh criticism for Hasan, who is an outright supporter of terrorism. Quite literally. He is a champion for terrorism and a supporter of terrorism. And if you don't believe me, watch the video. Thank you very much. That's all I have to say about that. You know,
Los Angeles.
You know, supposed fans who are throwing tomatoes and saying stop, I don't have to be here at all. This is me doing my best, considering everything. And do you think that I want to be here at all today?
Oh, this is such a weird moment. Fans are saying stop this weird back and forth with Hasan. They're not saying quit the show, or even if they are saying stop doing the show, they're saying just take a break from being online altogether. Pretty weird criticism to be why are you telling me to stop doing this when I don't even have to be here? It's Ethan, they want you to be here. They're just offering constructive criticism to you, to kind of try to change your content. And it is kind of weird to complain about Hasan or complain about his fans leaving criticism when he's fostered this community where they can make posts on Reddit and he'll respond to it within the hour. The Reddit post can greatly influence the direction of the show, and now he's being stop commenting on Reddit. It's weird, and it's just him trying to isolate himself from criticism that he doesn't want to hear.
I don't.
Do short up today. If your heart ain't in it. You know?
Well, anyway, I came in for you guys, so I'll sing and dance for you guys here and pretend that everything's fine, because that's what you guys want.
I mean, you know, you wear your emotions on your sleeve, so I don't expect too much from that.
Well, I don't know why they do either. Apparently, just started watching the show. But whatever. I mean, that's all I wanted to say, and I think that's pretty tame. So
that's why I think the video you made was great. I think everyone should check it out. If they have criticisms of you and they haven't seen it, go see it. It's great. You bring out a lot of good points.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Oh my God. This guy, what is this guy's name? This guy in the purple. He's such a ass kisser. I don't know his name, but that video that Ethan made was objectively not great. And this is the guy that I was also telling him, call that guy Phil DeFranco do that on like the election night stream, and he's saying that, oh, that was such a great call. It's like, that reminded me of Trump talking about, oh, it was a perfect call. It was a perfect call. Anyway, so this video is not great, and Ethan did not make very many points in it that were good. We can actually see that his main point is like whataboutism. He's saying, oh, you're criticizing me. What about Hasan? Why aren't you criticizing Hasan? So that's kind of the main thing that Ethan says. Another thing that Ethan talks about in the video, and we saw it here, is that he's minimizing what Hila said, saying Yoav Gallant is a great guy, as a misspeak. Oh, Hila misspoke, even though it was about like a 3-minute long segment where she said multiple times in different ways that Yoav Gallant is a good guy. So let's just get into this video right away.
Hello, I'm here to address something that happened on Thursday's show. We were doing our post-election COPE stream, and the subject of Israel had came up, and here is what was said about it. Let's take a look. Trump
is so pro-Israel, it's insane.
Not only is he pro-Israel,
him and
he hates
Bibi,
Arabs.
Bibi like talk a lot, and Bibi's become a lot like Trump.
Yeah,
so.
Bibi's his guy. They're like homies. Bibi's celebrating last night.
Just the other day, Bibi fired a really good guy that a lot of people are pissed about, and he fired him because they had a disagreement, and that's like so Trump coded.
Well, he was like a moderating voice in the war room.
Yeah.
And he got rid of him, or at least a more moderate voice. I don't know anything about the guy. Here we're talking.
Okay, so I broke this down pretty well in the video I made on Friday. Basically, they're talking about Yoav Gallant. I have a lot of tabs open, so I'm not going to pull up straight up sources, but Yoav Gallant was the Minister of Defense in the Israeli army. He was basically a rival to Netanyahu. He had this coalition government with Netanyahu, but alongside Netanyahu, he had arrest warrants by the International Criminal Court for the crime of war crimes. So when Hila and Ethan are saying that this guy is a moderating force, he's a good guy, what are they talking about? Well, the biggest thing they're talking about is that Ethan says Yoav Gallant wants to end the war. And in Ethan's mind, ending the war is bringing the hostages out of Gaza. And this really shows how unserious Ethan is at analyzing the whole Israel versus Gaza situation. If he boils it down to, in his mind, if you bring the hostages out of Gaza, if you bring the Israeli hostages out of Gaza, that's going to lead to an end in the war. That is a extremely childish, simplistic view of this conflict, but it's one that Ethan holds. And I think that if you look at all of Ethan's actions from that perspective of him being extremely childish about this whole conflict, then it starts to make a lot of sense, the things that he's done, kind of defending Israel and attacking people that are pro-Palestinian, saying that they're anti-Semitic, and spending most of his time complaining about pro-Palestinian criticisms of him. Because in his mind, if you return the hostages, that's going to end the war, so why are you attacking me? It also makes a lot of sense that he would put a lot of that burden on Hamas to end the war, because if you think that it's just a matter of getting hostages out of Gaza, you would put all of the agency of this war on Hamas, rather than, if you believe Israel's using the hostages as an excuse to colonize Gaza, all of the agency would be on Israel. So Ethan is saying that Yoav Gallant wants to end the war because he wants to get the hostages out. In one article that Ethan released, that article cited Yoav Gallant is in favor of a temporary peace deal to return the hostages. That's not an end to the war. That's a temporary peace deal. And obviously Israel's going to colonize all of Gaza and then continue their colonization of the West Bank. Why is Yoav Gallant wanting to get the hostages out of Gaza right now? Well, it's a good political move. He's separating himself from Netanyahu. Netanyahu has made it very clear that he does not care about bringing the hostages home. Yoav Gallant is creating this separation from Netanyahu, and if he can bring the hostages home successfully, that's going to be a very good political move for him. It's going to get him a lot of popularity. The other reason getting the hostages out of Gaza and making a peace deal with them is relevant for a guy like Yoav Gallant, who is a war hawk in Israel, as is pretty much everyone in the Israeli military and government right now, is because he can use the troops that are being spent in fighting Hamas in Gaza to invade southern Lebanon. Yoav Gallant has said time and time again how much he basically wants to take over Lebanon, is at least southern Lebanon, and eliminate Hezbollah. Yoav Gallant is not peaceful. He has made it a priority to actually increase the amount of soldiers in the IDF by expanding the conscription to ultra-Orthodox Jews that are living within Israel. This is a policy that Gila supports because she resents ultra-Orthodox Jews because of their draft exemption. That's something that she resents because she was drafted, and she doesn't think it's fair that ultra-Orthodox Jews get to draft. So for these two reasons, Netanyahu does not want Yoav Gallant to bring the hostages back, because that's an excuse Netanyahu's using right now to invade Hamas and colonize Gaza. And Netanyahu does not want ultra-Orthodox Jews in the draft because they are a powerful voting bloc in Israel, and they are supporters of Netanyahu. So he's kind of like quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. You're voting for me because I don't want you to be drafted, so I'm going to protect your rights to not be drafted. All this being said, all that I'm trying to say right now is that Yoav Gallant is not a peaceful guy in Israel. He's not a moderating force in Israel. He has different political views than Netanyahu in terms of pretty niche areas, but in the broad general sense of Israel's expansionism, their ethno-state, their apartheid, and their colonial efforts, Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant are hand in hand. There is no ideological difference on those fronts. There are some pretty specific internal political differences between the two, but in terms of him being a moderating force, a peace driven guy, it's just not existent. So if Ethan's going to try to make the case that he is pushing for peace, that Gila is actually right in calling him a good guy, he is just straight up lying, and he is running defense for genocide.
Talking about Yoav Gallant, who was a member of Netanyahu's war cabinet, who just yesterday was fired by Netanyahu because he wanted to end the war.
Saying that he's a member of Netanyahu's war cabinet is a little bit diminishing of the stature that this guy had. He was the Minister of Defense. He was basically like the head of the IDF in terms of military rank. And also he was wanted for war crimes alongside Netanyahu, the only two people that the International Criminal Court have warrants out for their arrest from Israel. So he is basically like number two right behind Netanyahu. And Ethan Klein saying that he's just a member of Netanyahu's cabinet is also misinformation.
And Netanyahu wants to continue the war, and therefore he fired him. Once he was fired, people in Israel took to the streets and are protesting because he wanted to end the war. And Netanyahu wants to continue the war.
That's not accurate either. He doesn't want to end the war. He wants to have a temporary peace deal to retrieve the hostages. And when we also talk about the war, first of all, describing what Israel is doing to Gaza right now as a war is genocide denial. You cannot wage a war against a group of people that are controlled. Their electricity is controlled by you. Their food is controlled by you. Their water is controlled by you. All 3 out of the 4 sides of their borders is controlled by you. That is not a war. And Ethan calling it a war is just, again, a childish understanding of the situation that's occurring. And then the other thing is Ethan seems to not even realize that Israel is invading southern Lebanon.
And therefore he fired him. Once he was fired, people in Israel took to the streets and are protesting because, as far right as Netanyahu's, war cabinet is, he is literally a moderating voice in that cabinet and was the only one representing the people and pushing for the war to end. The problem with
Again, not pushing for the war to end. Can you give specific examples of how he was a moderating voice? If you say he wants to bring the hostages home, that's not any ideologically different than Netanyahu. It's just different strategies to kind of get to the same goal, right? And that goal being colonizing Gaza.
with Yoav, which I don't even think Ela probably knew at the time because this war's been going on for so long, is that he's somewhat infamous for this quote here. He said on October 8th, there will be no electricity, no food, no fuel. We are fighting human animals and we act accordingly. When he's talking about entering Gaza in the first phases of the war. Now, a lot of people look at this language and think that it's dehumanizing and genocidal, and I'm one of those people. I agree that this is a horrible thing to say, and I don't defend him, and I never would defend him, a statement like this, which I assume people who watch this show know and understand. Now, a year plus later...
So just one thing to say there. First of all, Yoav Gallant is not infamous for that statement. He is infamous for the war crimes that he has perpetrated as the Minister of Defense in Israel. And the second thing is that Ethan Klein actually has defended this statement. He made in an Instagram post a screenshot of that very statement and said, well, I think that it's safe to assume that Yoav Gallant was talking about Hamas, not all Palestinians, because Hamas had just done October 7th the previous day. So obviously he's just talking about Hamas when he says, we're going to cut off food, we're going to cut off water, we're going to cut off electricity to all of, well, he doesn't say all of Gaza, but he says to them, and we're going to treat them like human animals. So it seems like Ethan has kind of backtracked off of defending this very clearly genocidal collective punishment statement and has now kind of retreated to the position of, okay, well, that is genocidal. But since then, he's done all of these good pro-peace things. Also just overlooking the fact that he's not been convicted of, or he's not been accused of war crimes because of that statement. He's been accused of war crimes because of the things he's done in the year since he's made that statement.
For whatever reason, this is the same guy who's advocating for the war to end in Israel. And Ela, looking over...
Not advocating for the war to end.
Rioting, people are upset, and that people who want the war to end are upset that he got fired. And that's basically all that happened. We're talking about the fact that he's the only person that wants to end the war. And I personally don't understand how that's not...
He's not the only person that wants to end the war. This is, again, not only genocide denial and defending Israel's genocidal actions, but it is overlooking the very real leftist people that are in Israel that genuinely want to end the war. And so when Ethan says, Yoav Gallant, the man who's been accused of war crimes, is the only voice in Israel that's wanting to end the war, that might be true for the Israeli cabinet, for the people that actually have any power within Israel, but it is overlooking genuine leftist progressive Israelis. And I'm talking about leftist progressive relevant to like American politics, relevant to European politics, people that have genuine progressive views, not progressive relative to Netanyahu, where your progressive position relative to Netanyahu is maybe we should get our hostages, maybe we should get our citizens out of Gaza before we just invade it all and kill everyone there. That's a progressive position in Israel, like relative to Netanyahu, but there's genuine leftist people there that are saying, what we're doing is horrible. We've been brainwashed. We should not be colonizing this, and we should give equal rights to Palestinians. Ethan doesn't know about these people. I think it would be great if he brought one on to talk about them. One of the best interviews I saw, and I'll throw a link to it if I can find the video in the description, was Hasan interviewing some leftist Israeli teenagers who were like, yeah, we're about to graduate high school, but we're not doing this draft because this is a straight up genocidal apartheid state that we're living in. And I'd rather go to jail for a few months or be like socially ostracized by not taking part in the IDF than betray my morals like this and take part in this horrible apartheid state that we're living in. And again, Ethan just has a very rudimentary understanding of the actual situation that's happening in Israel. And that could explain this. And I hope that that is the case, because if Ethan actually does understand that this guy just wants to get the hostages out and he's saying this so that we can get Israeli citizens out of Gaza and then attack it again once we take out Lebanon. Like, let's say Ethan's way more informed than he's letting on. Then that would kind of make him an evil guy. He's literally spreading misinformation to his progressive American audience about Israeli politics and Israeli goals. And if he's doing that knowingly, that makes it that much worse than what he's doing now, which I think he's just like being a hapless idiot, just responding to his emotions. He's just being governed by his emotions right now. But if he's like actually way more aware than he's letting on, that's a dark thought.
Not relevant. Here from The Guardian, a left-leaning newspaper you guys all probably know. Here's a headline. Benjamin Netanyahu fires Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, triggering protests in Israel. Demonstration in Tel Aviv, widely seen by Israel's allies as a break on far-right elements of the Israeli government. Again, this isn't just my opinion. This is opinion as a break.
Can you read more than a single sentence of this article, Ethan? What does it say here? So he's fired his defense minister, Yoav Gallant, a figure widely considered by Israel's international allies to be a break on the far-right elements of the country's coalition government, prompting protests around Israel. Netanyahu said in a video statement late on Tuesday that significant gaps on handling the battle in Gaza had emerged. So, I mean, he doesn't actually read anything that Yoav Gallant has been breaking. But again, how much of a break can this guy really be when he's been accused of war crimes? And let's just get into this right now. Again, I played this video earlier, but I think it's relevant.
That I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, as well as crimes against humanity of extermination and or murder, persecution, and allegations of crimes of committing other inhumane acts. My office submits.
So there you go. That is your moderating force. That's the break on the far right government.
On far-right elements of the Israeli government. Again, this isn't just my opinion. This is opinion that's held by internationally, that he is a moderating voice on the war cabinet, once again, advocating for the war to end, which is what I thought we all wanted. Here's another article from The Guardian. Yoav Gallant reportedly says Israeli army has nothing left to do in Gaza. The ousted defense minister also quoted as saying Netanyahu rejected peace deals against advice of his security officials. As you can see, I'm not saying any of this to defend him. What he said and what he's done should very well be investigated by the International Criminal Court. And if he's found, he should submit it to investigation. If he's found guilty, then charge him. But what I am saying is that I think that while Ela misspoke and said he's a good guy, her intention was that, you know, this guy is trying to end the war. And I'm pretty sure we're all on the same page as that being a good thing.
I feel like the reason I brought it up was mainly to express the frustration with Bibi and him firing the one guy that was somewhat, you know, attempting at moderation. It wasn't really so much to say Gallant is a good guy. I shouldn't have used that word. That was a bad choice on my part, considering stuff that he has said that I was not even thinking of. Really coming from the concerning feeling of like, we have Trump in office and Bibi just fired the guy that is opposing him. That's all I was trying to say.
I mean, just again, she's saying that, oh, I shouldn't have said that he's a good guy because of the words that he said that I wasn't even thinking of. Again, the reason that he's not a good guy isn't because of that tweet that he made on October 8th. It's the multitude of war crimes that he's committed as the Minister of Defense in Israel. Hila knows about the tweet because she said, oh, I wasn't thinking about it. Doesn't really stop to think there. And Ethan and her are both in the reflection of, oh, should we have talked about Yoav Gallant as being a good guy? They are like, well, people are mad at us because of the tweet that he made. So again, they're not even mentioning any of the war crimes that he's committed as the Minister of Defense of Israel. So it is a diminishment of the atrocities Israel has committed in Gaza.
Okay, but I do understand that was not a good choice of words, and I would not have said that again. So I'm stepping away for a little while from being on camera and being on the podcast. It's too much, and it's not fair for everybody. And yeah.
So that's where our head was at when we said that. But now people like Hasan are going on their channels and accusing us of supporting a war criminal. Anyway, here's what Hasan said this evening about the clip that sent everybody into a frenzy.
Crazy. I just hate how Ethan is brigading smaller content creators like the deprogram because he couldn't get to you. It's fucking gross how he keeps picking smaller content creators that are just getting by, and he is sitting on his golden throne. It's just straight up harassment. I know, he's just...
I can't get over the fact that they keep fucking crying about me responding to these communities.
Okay, so let's just kind of summarize the video so far. We're 5 minutes into a 14-minute long video. Ethan has tried to make the point that when Hila said he's a good guy, they were just talking about him being a moderating force. And honestly, I can see where they're coming from. They don't really follow this too much. If you make an offhanded comment about Israeli politics, and you've seen some articles where they're like, this guy's a moderating force, you see that he was fired and there were protests, and you're like, why was he fired? Well, he was fired because he wanted to make a peace deal with Hamas. I can see how that would be something that you kind of just absorb, and that's kind of a position you have without even really looking too much in depth about it. You're like, okay, well, in my mind, this guy's kind of more pro-peace than Netanyahu is. So you can make that offhanded comment, and then people are obviously going to attack you because they're like, okay, well, this guy's straight up a genocidal freak. Why would you say he's a good guy? So what I would appreciate from Ethan here, because I do think that what Hila said warrants a video, he does kind of need to give a response, because he's literally said that a guy who is wanted for war crimes is a good guy. So I think that does merit a response from Ethan. What should his response have been? Well, his response should have been explaining why they thought he was a good guy. So what, like those articles that he listed, that could be a good explanation of why they thought he was a good guy. Oh, well, this one article I read said that he's been a brake on the far right people in Netanyahu's coalition. This other article has talked about how when he got fired, people that wanted the hostages back started rioting. So that led to me believing that he was pro-peace with Hamas. That's not really what we got then. So like, you can explain how you got there in terms of your thought process and the way that you consume information. But then what is needed is a correction of the record. You need to dive into this guy, explain why he's not a good guy. He's not a good guy because of the tweet. He's not a good guy because of the war crimes he's done. Ethan hasn't talked about that. Ethan hasn't talked about the importance of the position that Yoav Gallant was in, such as the Minister of Defense. He just said he was a member of Netanyahu's council or cabinet. So he hasn't actually corrected any of the misinformation that he and Hila were spewing on their podcast. In fact, he's actually doubled down on it, defending Yoav Gallant as a good guy and saying that, well, yeah, can't you understand where we were coming from? And it's like, okay, Ethan, if this is the information that you're consuming, I can understand where you're coming from, and you can still be wrong. You need to correct the record to your audience and say how you were wrong and fight against the misinformation that you were spreading rather than doubling down on it. And this has been a really big problem for him. I think that this video is extremely problematic because of the amount of disinformation that he's doubled down on here. And we can see that this is pretty much the extent of his correction for that comment that they made. Oh, Hila misspoke. He's not actually a good guy because of that tweet, but he's kind of a good guy because he is a moderating force on the Israeli government. That's just not going to cut it, and it's not going to help you disprove to the people that are accusing you of being a Zionist and being genocidal. That's not going to really help you defend yourself in that regard, because you are spreading misinformation for the Israeli regime at the moment. And we'll get into the rest of this video, but I just kind of wanted to recap it. And we're 5 minutes, 36 seconds in, and this has kind of been the extent of Ethan dealing with the comments that they made on the podcast. And from there, he doesn't really defend it anymore, which is really disappointing.
Like, this is the biggest socialist podcast. They have they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Second Thought has 2 million subscribers. When can I respond to these people? When is it warranted?
Already covered
give me
this.
a fucking break.
He's just like aligning with all these fucking drama peddlers like Keemstar and shit in an effort to try and get me fucking banned. It's psychotic to me, you know? I just don't get it. I don't understand it.
What a fucking liar, dude. What a Weasley little fucking liar. He's just straight up lying. He's just lying right now. In fact, this is a lie that he keeps saying, is that I'm somehow aligning myself with Keemstar. Once again, I'll show you. I went and fished out the original stories. I was talking about Frogan getting shit from a ton of conservatives for her wonderful remarks about hoping American military men get PTSD. I was showing it to say it's not my fault that she's getting harassed when this clip of her is going mega viral on Twitter and being called out by the worst people on the internet, right? Look at, these are all conservative shitbags. These are all...
So just one comment here. I don't understand the whole issue Ethan has with Frogan, but let's just take an objective look at what Ethan is effectively doing. He's saying, I'm calling out right-wing harassment of Frogan. But what is he really doing? He's posting screenshots of, I think this is Twitter. He's posting Twitter screenshots of conservatives roasting her. How is that a defense of Frogan and an indictment of the conservatives when you're uncritically just like spreading what they're saying about her on your platform? Like, he's platforming these conservatives in the worst way possible, because not only is he not being critical of their tweets, but he's posting their tweets in the same day that he's agreeing with what they're saying. He was also saying that Frogan's being dumb for like attacking American soldiers for having PTSD. That's what he was saying on his podcast. And now he's posting conservatives that are agreeing with him uncritically on his Instagram to all of his followers. I'm sorry, but if I was looking at these tweets, does Ethan ever say that, oh, conservative, like, you shouldn't be saying this because then conservatives are attacking her? So let's just see what he's actually saying in his Instagram. Okay, so I wonder which crowd is DMing her hate messages. Nice trying to avoid accountability for literally anything ever. Grow the F up. Also, close your public DMs, moron. Literally all of us have our DMs full of vile shit if we left it open. You are not special. So, I mean, you can get as close as possible to saying, like, I wonder which crowd is DMing her hate messages, and I assume he means conservatives there. 7.5 million views. Sadly, no one cares about anti-Semitism, but in America, people do care about veterans. Prob shouldn't have said that. Okay, weird. And then he's just posting more conservatives attacking her for the exact same thing he attacked her for. Uncritically posting a conservative attacking her. Nice try scapegoating me, losers. So is Ethan just posting these conservatives attacking Frogan and saying that the hatred that's coming Frogan's way isn't from me, it's from conservatives? And there's such an easy response to that. It could be from both of you. You're not doing an analysis over all of the traffic that's mentioning Frogan and saying this person's 75% of it's conservative, 25% is progressive. You're not doing any kind of study. You're just screenshotting random tweets that you find, and again amplifying them uncritically. You're like, oh yeah, I'm harassing Frogan, but also all of these conservatives are harassing Frogan. So how are you not aligned with Keemstar in this regard? Did Keemstar attack her? Like, maybe Keemstar defended her, and Ethan's like, why are you saying I'm aligned with him? I was actually attacking Frogan. Keemstar was defending her. We're not in alignment at all.
About Frogan getting shit from a ton of conservatives for her wonderful remarks about hoping American military men get PTSD. I was showing it to say it's not my fault that she's getting harassed when this clip of hers going mega viral on Twitter and being called out by the worst people on the internet, right? Look at, these are all conservative shitbags. These are all people that I disagree with and have openly said terrible things about, including Keemstar. So like the way that he singles him out and says, oh, Ethan is co-signing Keemstar, he's a fucking liar, dude. He's a weaselly little liar.
The person that they're talking about is Yoav Gallant.
Again,
Yoav Gallant.
He didn't say that Ethan was like working with Keemstar or anything. He said he was aligning with Keemstar, and if Keemstar was attacking Frogan, how is that a lie? Like, I don't know. I don't understand that.
Benjamin Netanyahu has an active petition for his arrest by the ICC. The person that they are talking about here, before getting fired by Benjamin Netanyahu, the person that they're calling a moderating voice, said this, which is the reason why there is an active petition, an active application for a warrant for his arrest by the ICC. I don't know. I'm legitimately shocked.
The problem why I'm frustrated with this whole situation, you guys know me. I'm more than willing, more than happy to address shortcomings and errors that I've made and take every chance I can to learn and grow from them, right? But the problem I have is that our subreddit and our community is overridden with these 8-year longtime ultra fans who can no longer, tolerate us, or they can no longer walk down this path with us as we've thrown our lot in with the Nazis, right? But like these same people, okay, they hold no standards. And Hasan can go out there and glaze an international terrorist organization and its leader and glaze up Hasan Nasrallah like he's a fucking great dude.
Hasan Nasrallah was
Bro, this is insane whataboutism. So Ethan's like, first of all, what Ethan said doesn't make any sense. He's like, my subreddit is filled with people saying that we're like 8-year-long fans of the show, and I cannot any longer go along with the content that you've been bringing this last month. And Ethan's like, well, why are you saying that in my subreddit? Why aren't you talking about Hasan, saying that Hasan Nasrallah is a good guy? Which, first of all, Hasan Piker never said that. And then it's so funny. It's like, okay, Ethan sees fans saying, Ethan, I've been a huge fan of your show for years, sometimes decades, but I can no longer watch it. And he's like, why are you telling me? Why aren't you telling Hasan? It's like Ethan's so crazy right now that it is just becoming comical. Like, he's like, okay, I feel like I've explained it, but they're fans of yours. They're not fans of Hasan. Hasan gets criticisms from his fans. You get criticisms from your fans, Ethan. And then just one more thing, like Ethan kind of described Hasan as attacking his wife. I think that was in the podcast. I gotta find that clip again. if this will load here. But man, the criticisms that he's had of Hasan have been so weak sauce.
It went really fast.
Did you cut it or did you?
Like he's like, oh, Hasan's lying about me, aligning with Keemstar.
Well, one thing leads to another.
Like,
I believe that
Yeah,
an individual citizen in this country has a right to own
It's a gateway
a
drug
nuclear
to
warhead.
nuclear bombs or something. No?
Anyway, the reason Hila's not here is because she made some kind of she made a comment. I made a video about it on Ethan Klein channel because I promised everybody that I'm not going to be talking about this stuff. Why can't I even find it? Ethan Klein channel. So I made a video. I was up really late last night because Hasan was attacking my wife, who I obviously support and defend against all ridiculous bullshit. And we made a video talking about, there was like a whole frenzy of activity.
Okay, yeah. So he said that I was up late last night making a video because Hasan was attacking my wife. Hasan never even attacked his wife in this video. Like if he found a clip of Hasan attacking his wife, he probably would have used it. But all Hasan did was say, this is the guy that they're saying is a good guy. He's literally a war criminal.
I'm really shocked.
The problem why I'm frustrated with this whole situation, you guys know me.
So again, not playing a clip of Hasan attacking his wife, and then goes on to the next day say, oh, Hasan was attacking my wife. So again, just misrepresenting pretty much just facts of the universe to his massive audience. And at this point, I'm not really expecting anything different from Ethan here. And I do kind of feel responsible for going through this because I know a lot of people have started looking at my content to kind of go through everything. So whenever Ethan does make a little stupid comment like that, his fans do pick up on it. And they're like, okay, well, I don't watch Hasan, but Ethan said that he was attacking my wife. Ethan said that Hasan was lying about me aligning with Keemstar. And they don't, I mean, that's what they're going to believe going onwards in life. And that is creating divisions in genuine progressive areas. And it's just like, not only is it a feel bad online, but it straight up is just creating divisions in progressive communities. And as a result, I do think that however marginal that it may be, I do think that it does damage people's ability to coalition build and get real change done in America and wherever they're living.
More than happy to address shortcomings and errors that I've made and take every chance I can to learn and grow from them, right? But the problem I have is that our subreddit and our community is overridden
This
with
is so
these
funny.
8-year longtime ultra fans who can no longer, tolerate us, or they can no longer walk down this path with us as we've thrown our lot in with the Nazis, right? But like these same people, okay, they hold no standards, and Hasan can go out there and glaze an international terrorist organization and its leader and glaze up Hasan Nasrallah like he's a fucking great dude.
Hasan Nasrallah was assassinated. Hezbollah is a paramilitary organization that is also a part of the Lebanese parliament.
Do we like them or no?
I think as a resistance group, they're pretty successful against Israel. They are a terrorist organization. Like they're designated. They are designated by the.
Okay, so we're going to get into this because in my reaction video to Ethan, I was not really reacting to Hasan, and I basically said, this is all whataboutism. Ethan is not able to defend himself effectively against criticism that he's, defending a genocidal state. So what does he do? He goes back to the playbook that Hasan is propping up terrorist organizations. He interviewed a Yemeni teenager. He is running defense for Hamas, saying that, oh, well, like their actions, I can understand where their actions are coming from. Even on October 7th, I can understand that. He said that Hamas didn't commit mass sexual assault on October 7th. This is Ethan's favorite playbook, and he goes back to it time and time again. Whenever he gets criticized for his takes, he says, well, Hasan has bad takes too. Just Again, Ethan is incapable of accurately describing reality. He says that Hasan has described Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, as a great dude. Throughout this clip, you cannot find a single instance where Hasan says that Nasrallah was a great dude. And we'll use this opportunity to get more into Hezbollah, because I do think it's kind of important to just give some more background information on Hezbollah, because Ethan says, I'm going to give you a crash course in Hezbollah, proceeds to give no history of Hezbollah whatsoever, other than some like isolated terrorist incidents that they've committed, and then describing a very brief, very watered down history of their involvement in the Syrian war. And let's just put this out there right now. I'm not an expert in the Syrian war, but we'll try to get into it and see if we can shine a little bit more light on Hezbollah than what Ethan is giving us. And then last thing to note before we get into this, Hasan Piker says that as a resistance group, Hezbollah's been pretty effective. So when he says that he doesn't have an issue with them, we can keep in mind the context that Hasan's looking at them is at their function as a resistance group. Hezbollah has done some things that isn't straight up being a resistance group against Israel, and we'll get into that. And even like people that used to support Hezbollah in the region that they are operating in have criticized them for taking part in the Syrian war, because it got away from their doctrine, from their founding doctrine, as being a resistance group to fight against Israel. And again, we'll get into this, but common criticism to them has been that they've killed more Syrians than Israelis, and as a result, that's like as a result, that's like a very big that's a very big vulnerability that opens them up to criticism. Like, that's pretty bad, and they've been criticized for it a lot. So we'll get into this, though. Let's continue.
American State is a terrorist organization.
I do not like them then.
Well, like,
I like what you like.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
I'm going to give you guys a crash course on Hezbollah. Let's start back from the beginning. 1983, suicide truck bombing of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. 45 embassy staff were killed, 34 injured. They bombed the French.
Okay, so let's take a look at this. So let's actually read out what this says, because Ethan's not really reading it. He's just reading the headlines. 1982, Israel invades Lebanon. Hezbollah is formed with Iranian financial and military backing and an explicitly Khomeiniist doctrine of establishing an Islamic state in Lebanon and liberating Jerusalem and all of historical Palestine, which includes the current state of Israel. So, I mean, Ethan doesn't read that, which seems weird if he's going to say, I'm going to give you a crash course in Hezbollah. Let's start at the beginning, and then doesn't explain how they were formed. We even have the Israeli leader at the time said that we entered Lebanon and they were giving us flowers and gifts and candy, and we left with Hezbollah shooting at us. So even the prime minister of Israel at the time acknowledged that they took a huge part in the creation of Hezbollah, which again is something Ethan doesn't talk about. And then he goes into these basically terrorist style attacks that Hezbollah has perpetrated throughout the course of their existence.
French Marine barracks in Beirut, 300 dead. Attempted murder of the head of the Turkish Jewish community. Suicide bombing of the Argentine Jewish Mutual Association building in Buenos Aires, 85 killed, 300 injured.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
Bombing of a restaurant near the U.S. Air Force Base in Spain, 18 killed, 83 injured. Car bombs of the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, 11 killed, 58 injured. Hijacking of Kuwait airline planes, killed 4. Suicide bombing at the Israeli Embassy in Buenos Aires, 29 killed, 240 injured.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
Suspected of carrying out suicide bombing missions against Israeli vacationers in Bulgaria. Indicted for the assassination of former Lebanese Prime Minister Rafik al-Hariri.
I don't have an issue with them.
Hezbollah participated in the Syrian civil war on the side of Assad, violent dictator. They're responsible for the genocide of well over 500,000 Syrians. Here's an article from Amnesty International.
Okay, once again, this is misinformation. If he says that they are responsible for several 100,000 Syrians being killed, that's just not true. Hezbollah did fight on the side of Assad in the Syrian civil war, but again, The estimates for deaths in this conflict is a bit over 300,000 over the course of 10 years. That's all of these deaths are not attributable solely to Hezbollah, so misinformation here. And again, if we compare that to what Israel's been doing, they've directly killed like 50,000 Palestinians, an estimated hundreds of thousands more either dead or dying from starvation and disease in Gaza. And that's over the course of 1 year. So, I mean, look, we're talking about Hezbollah right now, but all of what Ethan's saying here can be flipped back onto Israel and specifically back onto the guy whose policy Israel has been carrying out and whose policies have led to war crimes being attached to him in Yoav Gallant, who Gila said was a good guy. And when Ethan and Gila get called out on that, again, Ethan doesn't say, I was wrong, here's why, here's all of the war crimes Israel has done, we're wrong, we're apologizing. They double down and say, no, he is actually a good guy. He is a moderating force in Israeli politics right now. So Hasan didn't actually say that Hassan Nasrallah is a good guy, we should support him. He's actually a moderating force in the axis of Iranian power right now. He's a moderating force because he created a peace deal with Israel at one time, so we should support him there. He didn't say that. He said, as a resistance group, Hezbollah's pretty effective, and I don't really have an issue with them. And I think it's safe to say, like, I am going to be putting a little bit of words in Hasan Piker's mouth, but I think it's safe to say that he would say, in the context of them as a resistance group, I don't have an issue with them, which I don't know if this is a hot take, but I also don't really disagree with. I think that when you do have a colonial state, you cannot take issue too much with the resistance groups that spring up to fight back and push back against that state. I don't think that you can really criticize them in terms of their resistance. Obviously, every military group has issues. Every military group is going to cause harm to people and do bad things, and you can criticize them for that. But if their general goal is to resist against a violent occupying force, it's kind of hard to criticize the goal of resisting against an occupying force. And that is the stated goal of Hezbollah. And we'll dive into the actions that they can very easily be criticized for and should be criticized for. But again, as a resistance group against Israel, what can you do, man? What can you really do when you have a country that invades your country over and over again? Why would you not create an organization to resist them?
Syria, surrender or starve, strategy displacing thousands, amounts to crimes against humanity. Does that sound familiar?
I don't have an issue with them.
While the Syrian government's stated aim has been to vanquish opposition fighters, its cynical use of surrender or starve tactics has involved a devastating combination of sieges and bombardments.
I don't have an issue with them.
These have been part of a systematic as well as widespread attack on civilians that amounts to crimes against humanity. Sounds like what Israel's doing in Gaza.
I don't have an issue with them.
Relentless attacks on civilians, in addition to immense suffering caused by siege tactics, deliberate attacks on civilians and civilian...
All right, we need to run this back.
I don't have an issue with them.
Relentless attacks on civilians, in addition to immense suffering caused by siege tactics, deliberate attacks on civilians and civilian objects cause unimaginable misery. The government and Hezbollah forces burned the agricultural fields, just as a form of punishment, even though we couldn't access them.
I don't have an issue with them.
Once again, sounds like what Israel's doing in Gaza.
So Ethan's comparing Hezbollah fighting in Syria against Syrian rebels that are backed by the United States to what Israel's doing in Gaza. This is extremely disingenuous. Once again, Israel is committing a war against basically an occupied territory that they control. It is the equivalent to shooting fish in a barrel. Hezbollah is fighting they are fighting a civil war in Syria, and the rebels are backed by the United States and NATO, whereas Hezbollah is backed by Iran, Syria is backed by Russia. So you do have, it's basically a proxy war, right? Gazans and Palestinians have no such backing in Gaza. Like, Hamas did have some backing from Iran. They were trained by Iran. They do smuggle weapons in from Iran and Egypt. But to say that it's Russia, Iran, the Syrian government versus NATO, which took place in Syria, to Israel basically shooting fish in a barrel, shutting down the electricity, food, and water, and then just bombing wherever they see fit in Gaza, is extremely disingenuous, and once again is a reduction of the conflict that's happening. It's a reduction of the genocide, and it's reducing it to more of like a civil war with equal footing on both sides.
Familiar?
I don't have an issue with them.
While the Syrian government's stated aim has been to vanquish opposition fighters, its cynical use of surrender or starve tactics has involved a devastating combination of sieges and bombardments.
I don't have an issue with them.
These have been part of a systematic as well as widespread attack on civilians that amounts to crimes against humanity. Sounds like what Israel's doing in Gaza.
I don't have an issue with them.
Relentless attacks on civilians, in addition to immense suffering caused by siege tactics, deliberate attacks on civilians and civilian objects cause unimaginable misery. The government and Hezbollah forces burned the agricultural fields just as a form of punishment, even though we couldn't access them.
I don't have an issue with them.
Once again, sounds like what Israel's doing in Gaza. As of May 21, a minimum of 580,000 people is estimated to have been killed, with 13 million Syrians being displaced and 7 million refugees forced to flee Syria.
I don't have an issue with them, let's just say.
Here's some quotes from Hezbollah leaders, including Nasrallah. Our struggle will end only when this entity, if Israel, is obliterated. We recognize no treaty with it, no ceasefire, and no peace agreement. According to Shal-Shai, Nasrallah said in a speech.
So just one interesting thing about these quotes. So obviously Hasan Nasrallah is pretty anti-Semitic. But what he says about the actual politics of Israel is kind of interesting. So he says that our struggle will end only when this entity is obliterated. We recognize no treaty with it, no ceasefire, no peace agreements. Israel is an illegal usurper entity which is based on falsehood, massacres, and illusions, and considers that the elimination of Israel will bring peace in the Middle East. There is no solution to the conflict in this region except with the disappearance of Israel. So again, Ethan's trying to paint him as anti-Semitic. He's trying to paint the entire Hezbollah organization as simply being anti-Semitic. They've done all of these atrocities in the name of anti-Semitism. He's kind of overlooking the fact that it was created in the midst of an invasion that Israel was doing in Lebanon. And its stated goal has been to resist Israel. Its stated goal has been that, to the point where when it strays away from that goal, it brings harsh criticism down upon itself. And because Hezbollah has strayed away from the goal and entered Syria, taken part in the Syrian civil war, people in Lebanon really are not happy with Hezbollah right now. And again, like, if Ethan's going to try to say that Hezbollah is anti-Semitic, why, and its only purpose for existing is anti-Semitic, why is it taking part in the Syrian civil war? Obviously, it's a military group, just like everything else. It also has a political branch to it. And it is just subject to the politics of its area. And when Iran is getting involved in the Syrian conflict, Hezbollah is going to get involved there. When Israel invades Lebanon, Hezbollah is going to resist against Israel. It's not extremely complicated. And single people, like, I do think that this guy, Nasrallah, is anti-Semitic, and we can see here he said some pretty anti-Semitic things about Jewish people. But again, the organization is simply an organization responding to stimulus that the country is experiencing. When their main backer, Iran, is like, go fight in the Syrian civil war, they're going to go do that. When their homeland gets invaded, they're going to fight against the invaders. When their ostensible ally in Hamas is getting targeted by Israel, and Israel's expanding their colonization efforts into Gaza, they're going to resist against that, because not only do they want Palestinians and their allies to not get genocided, but if Israel expands, that sets a bad precedent for Lebanon, who is bordering with Israel. So again, they're going to want to stop Israel from doing that. Anyway, so Ethan plays some more anti-Semitic quotes from Hasan Nasrallah. We don't really need to listen to that. And then this is an interesting part.
Let's just say
So my point is, if you're going to come down so hard on Ela for what she said, where's the energy when Hasan defends Hezbollah and Hassan Nasrallah, who is a violent, genocidal, anti-Semite who mass murdered Syrians and committed terrorism all around the world?
Okay, so one more thing. If Ethan said, I don't think Israel's that bad, I think that the current, Netanyahu's current war coalition is bad. That would be kind of similar to what Hasan is saying. Now, I do think there's a big difference between Israel and Hezbollah. One was created with Western backing and is definitionally like a colonial apartheid state. Israel has pretty much all of the agency in this situation. It can choose whether to allow non-Jewish Arabs to have equal rights as itself. It can choose to stop expanding its borders and creating settlements in the West Bank. It can choose to stop occupying Gaza and give it more sovereignty as a part of Palestine, and it chooses to not do that. What can people do when they are bordering an apartheid state that has the backing of Western nations? Well, they pretty much have one choice, and that is to resist this expansive state. And so, yes, all of the agency is on Israel. And so it is a different thing to support Israel than it is to support Hezbollah. That being said, Ethan and Hila specifically singled out one person involved in the Israeli government and said that was a good person. Hasan did not do the same with Hassan Nasrallah. Hasan said, as a resistance group, I don't have an issue with Hezbollah. He didn't say Hassan Nasrallah is a good guy, which is what Ethan and Hila did. Ethan and Hila have been passively endorsing Israel. We do not have enough time in the day to break down all of the different war crimes that Israel has done. But suffice to say, they've been way more brutal and genocidally intent, bloodthirsty in their genocide on Gaza than anything Hezbollah's done. If Ethan's going to talk about how they took place in the Syrian civil war and over a course of 10 years, 300,000 Syrians have died, that's horrible. But it really has no comparison to what Israel's doing, where they've killed probably over 100,000 people by the best estimates of humanitarian organizations in a single year. There is no comparison at all. And do we also need to compare the population of Gaza to the population of Syria, where it's a much higher like per capita death rate in Gaza than pretty much any other conflict in recorded history? So again, zero comparison. And Hasan didn't personally say that this guy, the leader of Hezbollah, is a good person, which is what Ethan and Hila did. Let's continue this.
Where's all the 8-year subscribers flooding into his community saying they can't follow him in these footsteps anymore?
I can't believe I'm calling Nasrallah base. I mean, listen. You have to remember something, okay? A lot of these dudes, you see them in their fucking fits, and you hear about like some of their attitudes about like gay people, for example, and you immediately fucking resort to Orientalist perspectives, not realizing that these motherfuckers are better read than you by a million. Okay? Like it's not a broken clock situation. No, dude. Half of these dudes literally get educated in America and in the UK. What the fuck are you guys talking about? This is why it's Orientalist. To literally look at these dudes and go, oh no, they're fucking barbaric baboons. And like sometimes they get this shit right. No, dude, he knows. It's crazy. He's read more books than you could ever imagine. And also, ultimately, he is regarded as a pretty brilliant person in terms of like everything that he's done. You might not agree with his methods. You might not agree with his attitude overall in terms of like, his opinions on civil liberties and shit like that. But ultimately, this motherfucker has read a shit ton of books.
I don't have an issue with them.
Okay, so this was an interesting clip to include at the end because I don't think it really proves what Ethan was trying to prove. I don't think it proves what Ethan thought it did. And again, this is just an example of Ethan not being the smartest guy in the world. So what So what is happening here? Well, Hasan is responding to this chatter that's saying, I cannot believe that I'm going to call Hasan Nasrallah based. Why is the chatter saying that? We don't really know because Ethan doesn't include the context of this clip. And to be honest, I'm too lazy to look it up myself. But it doesn't matter. I don't think we need to know I don't think we need to like go back and watch 5 minutes. I think we do have enough context to make an educated guess. So what is this subtitle here? It says, Israel used to be a tool at the hands of the British. So this is an interview. I'm assuming this is Hasan Nasrallah. I'm actually pretty sure it is because Ethan includes an image of him at the end. So this is the leader of Hezbollah. He is doing basically political analysis for the purpose of Israel and basically saying like what Israel is being used for right now. And it is used as a tool for the British and the Americans to have this client state in the Middle East and have a representative of Western nations' interests there. So the chatter's like, oh, wow, he's doing political analysis that I would do. He's coming to the same conclusions that I'm agreeing with. I can't believe that I'm going to call this guy based. Hasan jumps on this and he's like, yes, people in these countries that America views as barbaric and backwards and not advanced as Western nations, people in these countries are extremely well educated. So Hasan's calling out this chatter's orientalization of people in these positions. The chatter, I mean, I don't think it's completely fair to say the chatter believes this, but there is a prevailing view that people in, let's just call them like desert countries where you wear long robes and you eat spicy foods and it's just weird for Americans. You'll see that and be like, okay, well, obviously they're not going to have the same kind of education and insights that we as big-brained Americans have. He's not going to have the same kind of political acuity that we have, and he's not going to see the situation with the same kind of clarity that we see it as because, you know, we have all of this political education and experience in breaking this down. It sounds like that is kind of orientalizing these people. You're saying that they're like so out there and strange that they don't come to the same conclusions as you, but these people are just as educated. And that's pretty much the extent of what Hasan's saying. He's not saying that he's correct. In fact, in this clip, Hasan is saying that he does have pretty bad views on certain things like personal freedoms. And I think it's also fair to say that his view on Jews is not very good. But what this really reminds me of is that clip that was going around the internet about a month ago of a conservative politician just drilling into the head of the Muslim anti-hate league in the United States while she was testifying in Congress, and he's saying, you support UNRWA, you support Hamas, don't you? While she's literally saying, I do not support Hamas. And that guy, who you look at that and you're like, oh, he's so dumb. He was a Rhodes Scholar. He's extremely well educated and intelligent, but he will put his education, his intelligence to the side to chase after these political ideals that he has. He will put ideology first. And I think that's the exact same thing that we see with people like Netanyahu, even this guy, Hasan Nasrallah, who he is pretty anti-Semitic and he does have pretty bad views on a lot of things like personal freedoms, like LGBTQ stuff. But he's, at the end of the day, he is educated. And when he's doing analysis on things, then some of that education will shine through his bigotry, and people will be like, wow, I can't believe that he said something I agree with. So anyway, I think it's kind of a dumb clip to end on, but I do think it's funny. Let's just introduce this clip one more time.
Anti-Semite who so hard on Ela for what she said. Where's the energy when Hasan defends Hezbollah and Hasan Nasrallah, who is a violent, genocidal anti-Semite who who mass murdered Syrians and committed terrorism all around the world. Where's all the 8-year subscribers flooding into his community saying they can't follow him in these footsteps anymore?
I mean, just once again to respond to Ethan, Hasan isn't defending Hasan Nasrallah here. That's a misreading of this clip, and Ethan's just kind of a dumb guy. So let's just make a dumb counter every time Ethan misreads something. And then the other thing that's funny about this little outro that Ethan sets up is that he's like, all of these 8-year subscribers coming into my subreddit telling me that I can't watch anymore because of what Hila said. Why aren't you going into Hasan's subreddit and saying the same thing? And it's like, because they're fans of yours, Ethan. If they were fans, I also love the implication here that Hasan does not receive any criticism from his fans or otherwise. I think that's crazy to say that he doesn't receive any criticism. Anyway, let's get into this. I think this was a good video.
Let's talk about Hezbollah. It's the Lebanese group that's back in the headlines.
There's been an intense exchange of rocket fire across the Israel-Lebanon border.
Hezbollah fires across the border every day.
Israel is targeting what it says are Hezbollah cells.
Some countries classify Hezbollah as a terror group, but it's also deeply embedded in Lebanese politics and society.
More powerful than the state, more armed than the Lebanese army itself.
Hezbollah is a militant movement. It defines itself as a resistance and pushing back against U.S. and Israeli policies.
It's also very close to Iran.
They take orders from Iran.
So how did Hezbollah come onto the scene? What exactly is its connection to Iran? And how powerful is the group today? The name Hezbollah means Party of God. Now that might make it sound like it's a religious group, but it's actually a lot of things. It is a religious movement, and its members are mainly from the Shia branch of Islam. But not all Shia Muslims in Lebanon support Hezbollah. It's also a political party with members in Lebanon's parliament and ministers in the cabinet. And it's an armed group. They say they've got 100,000 fighters, but it's hard to know for sure, and some experts suggest it's lower, likely between 20 and 50,000.
This is a secretive organization, even within, party members. Somebody working in a bank, a school, could be a Hezbollah fighter, and you don't know that. This is one of the strengths of Hezbollah. They tend not to show all their cards, if you like. This is a group that does not have known military bases.
Hasan Nasrallah is the Shia cleric who's led Hezbollah for more than 30 years. He's rarely seen in person. But in areas where support for Hezbollah...
So this was before Hasan Nasrallah was killed.
Strong, like in the southern suburbs of the capital Beirut and in the south of Lebanon, his image is everywhere.
And you also see posters of Iranian leaders because the group does not hide its links with Iran.
موازنة حزب الله ومعاشاته ومصاريفه وأكله وشربه وسلاحه وصواريخه من الجمهورية الإسلامية في إيران.
Some experts even characterize Hezbollah as essentially part of Iran's armed forces, a branch called the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC.
They are part of Iran's regional military structure. They have Lebanese IDs, but their loyalty and their job and their mission is to serve the interests of the IRGC's Quds Force. Full stop.
The Quds Force is the IRGC branch that's mostly focused on foreign operations. So how did Hezbollah come about? Well, there are three main factors that help explain its rise. The first is the Shia factor. Lebanon has always been very divided along religious and sectarian lines. Along with the Shia, the other main groups are Sunni Muslims and Christians. Lebanon's political system assigns them all key positions. It's designed so that they share power, but in practice, it tends to exacerbate divisions. And the Shia have often felt that they get the worst deal and are neglected by the government in Beirut.
The Shia community has long felt marginalized on the fringes of society.
In the 1970s, a political and armed movement fighting for Shia rights had cropped up. Other groups were vying for power too, including the PLO, a Palestinian group that had established itself in southern Lebanon. By 1975, they all turned on each other and a civil war broke out.
The Lebanese are fighting among themselves, Muslims against Christians and left against right.
The war lasted until 1990, and it was in the chaos of all the fighting that Hezbollah emerged. And this brings us to our second factor, Iran and the 1979 revolution. Iran's monarchy was overthrown and replaced by an Islamic republic, led by Shia cleric Ruhollah Khomeini. The revolution established Iran as the dominant Shia power in the region.
Khomeini saw himself and saw the revolution as something that goes beyond Iran. He saw this as more of a pan-Islamic revolution that goes even beyond the Shia community.
So Iran wanted to spread its ideology and influence, and everything going on in Lebanon provided an opportunity for that, especially after 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon. And this is the third factor that explains Hezbollah's rise. Now, Israel said it was going after the PLO. Remember, that's the Palestinian group that was based in southern Lebanon, and it had been attacking Israel from there.
Tanks roll into southern Lebanon. The Israelis said they had one goal: to root out once and for all Palestinian bases across the border from their northern settlements.
That sounds familiar. Oh, we're gonna root out Hamas. Stays there for, I mean, how long did Israel stay in southern Lebanon? Years?
Israeli forces reached all the way to Beirut. Later, they withdrew to southern Lebanon and occupied an area there right up until 2000.
The Israelis, they didn't just like kick the Palestinians out and leave. They came, they stayed, they occupied.
Yeah, when did they invade?
Now, Israel said it was going after the PLO, and Lebanon provided an opportunity for that, especially after 1982, when Israel invaded Lebanon.
So they invaded in 1982 and stayed there until 2000. How would that not create a resistance group?
Tanks roll into southern Lebanon. The Israelis said they had one goal: to root out once and for all Palestinian bases across the border from their northern settlements.
Israeli forces reached all the way to Beirut. Later, they withdrew to southern Lebanon and occupied an area there right up until 2000.
The Israelis, they didn't just like kick the Palestinians out and leave. They came, they stayed, they occupied.
And here's where our three factors all converge in 1982. A group of Shia in Lebanon, who were already aligned with Iran's revolutionary ideology, had come together to fight the Israeli forces. Iran capitalized on that, providing training, funding, and weapons, and that group adopted a name: Hezbollah.
Iran invested in an organic reality. You had Lebanese Shias who suffered decades of marginalization from the Lebanese state, and also were suffering from Israeli occupation, and were radicalized by the events of 1982. And hence comes a movement to build on all of that.
From the beginning, Hezbollah mainly defined itself as a resistance force against the Israeli occupation. In 1985, they stated that the obliteration of Israel from existence was one of their ultimate aims. They also said they wanted to kick out US and French troops who were in Lebanon as part of peacekeeping missions. Their tactics included assassinations, hostage-taking, suicide attacks, and some high-profile bombings, like one on the US Embassy in Beirut that killed 63 people.
So what I think is hilarious is when it's described like this, it's like, okay, well, these are all very bad terrorist tactics, right? Their tactics included assassinations, hostage-taking, suicide attacks. But it's like, these are all things that even colonial powers do, like the United States, Great Britain, Israel. They all do this. Maybe sans the suicide attacks, because now we have drones that we can just send in. But does America take hostages? Of course. Does America do assassinations? Of course. So again, it's so clear that the people that we don't like are deemed as terrorists, right? And then I know Ethan didn't explicitly do this, but describing Hezbollah as a anti-Semitic organization is just an inaccurate reading of the origins that created Hezbollah. And again, Hasan Nasrallah, pretty anti-Semitic guy, but you cannot deny that if Israel never invaded Lebanon, Hezbollah would not have been created. I think this is interesting too. So let's just get into Hezbollah a little bit, and let's talk about their taking place in the Syrian war. Let's see. I had that tab open. Let me see if I can find it again. Hezbollah involvement in the Syrian civil war. So they were involved in the civil war in 2011 and evolved into active support for the Syrian government forces and troop deployment from 2012 onwards. By 2014, Hezbollah was deployed across Syria. And in 2019, they've mostly pulled out now. So in early July, Hezbollah began to withdraw from Damascus suburbs in South Syria back into Lebanon. So they basically have stayed there for 5 years. We can see that national interest and other Western analysis noted the role of Hezbollah in turning the tides of the Syrian civil war in favor of the government. After the organization's role in Qusayr, Homs, and Aleppo, the armed wing of the Lebanese party gained political and military experience fighting in urban environments and enlarged its alliance with Syria and Iran. So Iran was in alliance with Syria, and Hezbollah is basically another arm of Iran, as we saw, and so that's kind of why they get involved. But they were definitely criticized for getting involved. So we can read that Hezbollah's military operations in Syria have been subject to widespread denunciation across the Arab world. Its support in Lebanon has suffered a drastic dent, and opposition has also emerged from its Shia base in Lebanon and beyond. Iraqi Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr attacked Hassan Nasrallah's policy for pursuing an Iranian agenda rooted in Shia sectarianism over a Sunni-majority country. Sadr had long been an advocate of activism solely in Shia-majority countries. An elder Sadrist leader denounced Hezbollah, accusing it of killing more Syrians than Israelis. So again, a lot of support for Hezbollah as being a resistance force against Israel, but when it deviates away from that goal and takes part in other regional conflicts, then a lot of criticism from the Arab world springs up against it. So I think we did a pretty good job of describing it. Hezbollah is obviously a pretty complicated force, but in terms of its goal of resisting Israel, it does make sense why Hasan Piker would be supportive of it. Because, I mean, let's just be honest, Hezbollah was effective at getting Israel to leave Lebanon. Let's see, if we go to its history. So yeah, but basically they were created to get Israel out of southern Lebanon, and they were effective at that. Hezbollah regards cultural, political, and religious freedoms in Lebanon as sanctified, although it does not extend these values to groups who have relations with Israel. So once again, it's not really a straight pro-Islamist extremist group like ISIS, like Al-Qaeda, but it is more of a extreme political, anti-colonial resistance group in Lebanon. And obviously when it kind of strays away from that, it does get criticized, and for good reason, in my opinion. And I think this is an interesting interview with Norm Finkelstein.
He ended up becoming When I spoke to Professor Chomsky on occasion about these issues, by the way, Professor Chomsky had a very high regard for Saeed Nasrallah, very high regard for him. But he would say, I don't believe Hezbollah is a strategic threat to Israel. I don't think that's true. And I thought, well, no, Chomsky's known for his pessimism. The voice.
So that's interesting. Norm Finkelstein is saying that Noam Chomsky holds Hasan Nasrallah in very high regard. And maybe is that because it does seem like Hasan Nasrallah was a fairly educated guy in terms of his analysis of Israel. And then also very ideologically driven, where he's, obviously getting support from Iran, and he either has to or he chooses to lead Hezbollah into getting involved in the Syrian war. And then he's also said, let's just be honest, some anti-Semitic statements.
YouTubes when he was lecturing on the subject. In any event, when the assassinations occurred of the leadership of Hezbollah, I said to myself, of course they were defeated, because there are 10,000 Mark Holmes out there. How could Hezbollah, it's a non-state actor, how could they compete with the resources, the quantity of mines arrayed against them, the 10,000 mark homes in the Pentagon, in MI6 in the UK.
Anyway, so the point of this clip is to basically illustrate that as important as Hezbollah is in terms of Lebanon, in terms of Iranians' influence in Lebanon, in Syria, it's kind of a launch pad for Iranian support for Hamas in Gaza. So as important as Hezbollah is, ultimately, it's never going to impact Israel. It's never going to get enough military power to actually pose a threat to Israel. Norman Finkelstein is saying that Noam Chomsky said that, and then Norman Finkelstein saying, of course, Hezbollah is going to, be defeated by Israel because Israel is a actual state. It has legitimacy. It has support from the most powerful countries in the world. And Hezbollah just does not have that. It's a group of radicalized people in Lebanon that is getting support from Iran. And that's a big reason why I think that this Ethan Klein clip saying that Hasan is a Weasley little liar rubbed me the wrong way, because it really reminded me of people complaining about how it's reminding me of people complaining about how privileged minorities are. Oh, well, black people can be racist against white people and we can't say anything about that. How come rappers can say the N-word and white people can't say the N-word? White people are being accused of racist all the time now. That's why it feels bad to be white, because everyone's just accusing us of being racist. And essentially it's the reaction, the response that I would have is just get over yourself. You have all the institutionalized legitimacy in the world. These people have been historically oppressed in terms of both minorities in America and Hezbollah in Lebanon. And they are not posing a threat to you. White people are not getting threatened by being called the C word. Cracker. I'm not streaming on Twitch. They're not being threatened by any racial slurs that you can throw at them. Louis C.K. had a great bit. He's like, I'm super happy to be a white man. What's the worst that someone can call me? Cracker? Bring me back to the time where I owned land and people. It's like nothing is going to harm you as a white person. Nothing is going to harm Israel as a, let's just be honest, white country and white-backed country. America and the UK view Israel as a white country, and that plays a large part in the support that they're giving it. Look at the difference in the reaction and the reception of Ukrainian refugees and refugees from non-white places. Look at, let's just talk about Palestinian refugees. No one wants Palestinian refugees. So there's a big difference in how people are perceived. And if you're perceived as white, you do have a lot of structural support, both interpersonally and on a global scale in terms of countries. So just once again, Ethan complaining about Hasan supporting these resistance groups, not saying that they're absolutely bad, where, Ethan is drawing a comparison between him saying that Israel's not that bad, but you shouldn't be criticizing me for saying that. You should be criticizing Hasan for saying that Hezbollah is not that bad. There's a huge difference where if you have institutionalized legitimacy and actual support, and then you're using that legitimacy to carry out a genocide, that's a pretty big difference in my opinion versus, 5 years ago, Hezbollah pulled out of a civil war that they were committing war crimes in. But I do support them in their resistance against Israel. I think that that's extremely different. And it's also just disingenuous. So, okay, let's get into the next segment. And I do want to talk about anti-Semitism. because we've talked a lot about anti-Palestinian sentiments, but this clip went viral over the weekend, and I think that it's important to discuss. So let's get into it. If my computer will work. All right, here we go. Oh, I think my computer's dying.
True. Yeah, it's not true. Well, why? I don't understand why left-leaning media, which is mostly Jewish, are calling people white supremacists, dude.
Jewish? Did you just say that?
Yeah, I just don't understand.
Left-wing media is mostly Jewish?
I mean, according to my Jewish friends, it is, you know? But why do they hate white guys?
It's just woke things, man. It's just virtue woke bullshit. It's like the...
I just don't understand it.
Well, because...
Let's just run this one back.
Yeah, it's not true.
Well, why? I don't understand why left-leaning media, which is mostly Jewish, are calling people white supremacists, dude.
Jewish? Did you just say that?
Okay, so that's...
Yeah, I just don't understand.
Left-wing media.
So, I mean, here you see Theo Vaughn kind of repeating a pretty common anti-Semitic trope, right? That not only are white people, or not only are Jewish people controlling the media, but they are also doing it in order to hurt white people. And this kind of gets into what I was talking about in terms of white privilege, where you're not really getting harmed by any systemic forces. In fact, all of the systemic forces serve to prop you up. But at the same time, even though you're getting propped up by all of these systemic forces, white people cannot resist trying to play the victim. And I think that this anti-Semitic conspiracy theory kind of perfectly plays into that victimhood mentality. Oh, we're at the very top, but we still want to be victimized. What can we do? We can just make up this even further up level of people, which is the Jews that are controlling everything. And so this is also kind of a funny comment, top comment. The claim that being against white supremacy means you hate white people is also quite something. So that's also true. Theo did do a pretty subtle Mott and Bailey there, where he's like, why are they always talking about white supremacy? And then he says, why do they hate white people? Joe Rogan plays into this saying, oh, well, you can't say the Jews are out there. But this is a conspiracy theory that we have seen increase more and more over the last few years, to be honest. Kanye West was a huge part of expanding this kind of conspiracy, and it's just existed for decades. But I do think that it's getting a little bit more, I think it's getting a little bit more commonplace to hear it being spoken. Oh, spoiler. So let's get into this. So I think this is interesting because I went to Ethan's Instagram. I was going to have all of his Instagram set up, but he deleted it before I recorded this video, so I have to be a little bit faster on this. So Ethan, the reason I'm bringing this up is because Ethan is taking the clashes that happened in Amsterdam between Maccabi soccer fans and Ajax soccer fans and saying that that is a pogrom on Jewish people. So what is his post? He says, do you think the roaming gangs of violent thugs asked Israelis/Jews if they were one of the bad ones, or did they just beat the shit out of them? Again, we can see here people in Netherlands begging not to be beaten because they aren't Jewish. Go on X and see universal praise for these roaming violent thugs, or Hasan's stream chat full of too-based. I haven't checked my comment section, but if you look at any post, it's just full of these pages of this for pages, apparently. So, and what does this say? It's just accusing him of supporting genocide and saying free Palestine. What do we have here? The top comment on this thread is saying there were undercover Mossad agents there that orchestrated the event. Did you read this on Mein Kampf Daily? And yeah, the Jerusalem Post does say that Mossad agents were joining the Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer trip. So anyway, Ethan is saying that this is basically a pogrom against Jews, and he's citing it as an example of anti-Semitism. So let's get into this. Is what happened in Amsterdam with the Amsterdam team, the Ajax soccer supporters, beating up the Maccabi soccer supporters from Maccabi Tel Aviv soccer supporters, is that anti-Semitic? I think this is an interesting video to watch. This was a Sky News video, which, to be fair, has been deleted and the reporting has been changed, but this was the original one.
Violence in Amsterdam left at least 5 people injured and dozens have been arrested. But what happened? Supporters of Israeli football club Maccabi Tel Aviv arrived in Amsterdam ahead of their UEFA Europa League match against Amsterdam club Ajax. On Wednesday, social media videos verified by Sky News show Maccabi Tel Aviv fans tearing down Palestinian flags from outside of homes. Other social media videos appeared to show residents chasing Maccabi Tel Aviv fans. On Thursday, just before the game, crowds of Maccabi fans were filmed singing racist and anti-Arab songs. While a pro-Palestinian demonstration had been banned by the mayor over fears there would be clashes. Later that evening during the match, Israeli supporters appeared to disrupt the minute silence for Valencia flood victims with chants, whistles and fireworks. Maccabi fans were seen attacking locals as a police car can be seen driving by. People with Palestinian flags were seen marching on the streets. Maccabi supporters say they were beaten and attacked on the streets of the Dutch capital, with videos showing some of the violence.
Say free Palestine and we go. Good.
Sky News could not independently verify all of the footage shown. Police arrested 62 people. 5 were taken to hospital, but have since been discharged. Israeli far-right ultras are notorious for their racism and physical violence. Dutch, Israeli and British leaders denounced the attacks as anti-Semitic and even referred to it as a pogrom. But their statements failed to mention the assaults by the Israeli hooligans against Dutch citizens.
So that's kind of funny. The full story first. That's a funny catchphrase. So I think that this video does a fairly decent job of describing what happened. And we can get into more videos, but suffice to say,
after the game, we went to a train.
Suffice to say, it is undeniable that Israeli fans went to Amsterdam, were causing trouble. Israeli fans were violent. People that were Ajax fans were violent against them, and there were definitely scuffles that were happening. Is it an accurate description to call this a pogrom against Jews? I don't think so. You cannot say that there were mobs of people combing through the city and beating up any Jew that they found. I know there are claims of people saying that we need to do a Jew hunt, but the fact remains that most of the people that were attacked are associated with the Maccabi hooligan team. So again, are they attacked because they're being Jewish, or were they attacked because they were being violent, they were being disruptive, they were shouting genocidal slogans and songs? You kind of need to use your own thoughts here. Yeah, so this is a guy interviewing saying that he was attacked. People are saying that he's lying here. I don't know if I can really get into it. I think that this is an interesting video. Let's try to...
Zo dan. Bender! B-E-N-D-E-R. Bender!
By this little 16-year-old kid
Ze
in
hebben palen uit de
Amsterdam.
grond gejat. Ik denk om zichzelf te weren van mensen die ze lastigvallen. Oh, ze doen nu allemaal maskers op.
By this little Bender kid.
Het is wel een flinke stoet. Oh, ze zijn palen uit de grond aan het jatten. Ze hebben palen uit de grond gejat. Ik denk om zichzelf te weren van mensen die ze lastigvallen. Oh, ze doen nu allemaal maskers op. Er is geen politie, dus ik weet niet precies. Het is nogal met een heel gespannen sfeertje. Oké. Ja, politie. Ik denk even alles aan het vertellen. Kijk, die gaan even de wapens die ze... Een leidertje in het midden en die is denk ik even alles aan het vertellen. Kijk, die gaan even
Okay, so we can see here that the Maccabee fans were obviously being violent and just like pretty callously disrespectful in the city before the game. After the game, they were pretty solidified in terms of functioning as a group and picking up weapons, pretty organized. They had a leader, they were sticking together, and then they were cooperating with the police. We can see that also a lot of the people were IDF members, and Mossad actually was a part of this group. There were Mossad agents. And what is Mossad? Well, Mossad is basically the Israeli Secret Service. So what does it say? The Mossad reportedly warned of a potential threat to Israelis and Jews in the Netherlands ahead of the soccer game, following which the pogrom ensued, Con News reported Friday, citing a senior security official. They reportedly sent a warning to security forces in Israel and the Netherlands, requesting an immediate and significant increase in security for Israelis. We can read here. Oh, this article is dying. Yeah, so just in case, Mossad agents to join Maccabi Tel Aviv FC trip to Amsterdam. As with all Israeli teams playing in Europe over the past year, security concerns are paramount. So just a little bit more context that you're not really going to see if you're just watching Ethan Klein, but with all Israeli teams playing in Europe over the past year, security concerns are paramount. So this isn't specifically isolated to Amsterdam. It's not that they have a pogrom against Jews in Amsterdam. This is just a general security concern because Israel knows that it's tanking its reputation and that people are not going to be very happy to see Israel in their countries. The exact same reason why a lot of Russian athletes are trying to either distance themselves from Russia or are not being accepted in different sporting events since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So, as with all Israeli teams playing in Europe over the past year, security concerns are paramount. On Tuesday, Dutch newspaper De Telegraaf reported that in addition to Maccabi's regular security personnel, so they already have security personnel, Mossad agents will join the team in Amsterdam to provide maximum protection. So Mossad agents were joining the team, the soccer team, not necessarily the fans that went there to support them. And we'll get into the fans, but they were joining the team. Just another thing that I find funny is that they're saying Maccabi Tel Aviv is like the worst team in the EuroLeague right now. Oh yeah. In the first year of a revamped format, the yellow and blue currently sit in 34th place out of 36 teams in the Europa League with 3 losses from 3 games. And I think they just got their next loss, so they're probably the worst team in the league right now, which is pretty funny. We can read this. Okay, so I'm going to start closing some of these tabs. How Zionist hooligans
We're here
provoke
in
chaos
Amsterdam, where we've reconstructed how the visit of Maccabi hooligans plunged the city into chaos.
Incident in Amsterdam. Fighting between Israeli football fans and Palestine solidarity demonstrators.
It wasn't safe to wear this little badge last Thursday.
No, it wasn't safe to wear this little badge last Thursday.
Hier waren ze allemaal aan het verzamelen. Hier waren ze aan het schreeuwen. Hier begonnen. Een collega van mij die rijdt hier langs. Die ziet het gebeuren, begint het te filmen. En ze komen direct op hem af. Komen direct op hem af met sloten, met de riemen, met alles. En begonnen keihard tegen zijn auto te slaan. Hele auto verniet. Een collega van mij rijdt rechtdoor. Ziet politie staan. De politie zegt we zijn ermee bezig. Ze hebben totaal niets gedaan. Ze hebben hun dingetje kunnen doen in de middag. Ze hebben kunnen dansen, schreeuwen. Ze werden niet lastiggevallen. Totdat het blijkt dat ze alle Palestijnse vlaggen eruit aan het trekken waren. Ramen aan het vernielen waren. Taxichauffeurs aan het bedreigen waren. En auto's kapot aan het slaan. Toen pas zijn wij gaan ingrijpen.
If you ask me, you could have seen this coming. Looking at the history of Maccabi Tel Aviv, you know that these supporters, these hooligans, that they are violent Zionists. They attack leftists in Israel. They have attacked a pro-Palestinian person in Greece last March.
We know Maccabi fans. Maccabi fans already have a reputation, even in Israeli standards. We know many of them are soldiers or ex-soldiers in Gaza right now. I also tried to explain this to the police. I said, look, if somebody just came back from Gaza and just came back from killing a lot of people, you don't expect them to behave normally in your city.
This is the location where Wednesday.
Anyway, this video seems great. I'd recommend watching it on your own. It's How Zionist Hooligans Provoked Chaos in Amsterdam by Left Laser. So what they're saying is correct. The Maccabi football hooligans do have a history of violence. And we can read here. So a lot of Americans do not know about football hooliganism. I don't really know about it, but let's read the Wikipedia article. So football hooliganism constitutes violence and other destructive behaviors perpetrated by spectators at association football events. Football hooliganism typically involves conflict between pseudo-tribes formed to intimidate and attack supporters of the other teams. Certain clubs have long-standing rivalries with other clubs, and hooliganism associated with matches between them, sometimes called local derbies, can be more severe. An example of this is the Devon Derby. Conflict may arise at any point before, during, or after matches, and occasionally outside of game situations. Participants often select locations away from stadiums to avoid arrest by the police, but conflict can also erupt spontaneously inside the stadium or in the surrounding streets. In extreme cases, hooligans, police, and bystanders have been killed, and riot police have intervened. Hooligan-led violence has been called aggro and bother. Hooligans who have the time and money may follow national teams to away matches and engage in hooligan behavior against the hooligans of the home team. They may also become involved in disorder involving the general public. While national-level firms do not exist in the form of club-level firms, hooligans supporting the national team may use a collective name indicating their allegiance. So this is a pretty accurate description of what we saw over the weekend. It happened on Thursday, but a lot of these stories were unfolding over the weekend. Israeli hooligan team comes in. They basically start chanting genocidal, racist, anti-Arab chants, are engaging in just general destructive behavior of the city of Amsterdam. And then you do get violence caused both by them and against them. And there are going to be innocent bystanders affected by this violence. There's going to be people that are completely innocent, beat up, targeted, harassed. There's even going to be an overflow of anti-Semitism where people are going to say, oh, let's hunt down the Jews because the Jews are coming here. And why would they not say that when Israel has been insisting for the entirety of its existence that we are representative of all Jews? And so when you dislike Israel and you take them at their word, you're automatically going to dislike Jews. And then let's just also be honest, like the people that are soccer hooligans, even in Amsterdam, are not going to be the most enlightened people in the world. And you might actually get some idiots there that are like, oh, Israel's coming here. We gotta fight the Jews. Just conservative, like sports heads. Let's take a look at what Israel's hooliganism is like. In the 2000s, tensions surrounding the Arab-Israeli conflict spilled over into sporadic riots between Jewish and Arab-Israeli football fans. In December 2000, it was reported that every club in Israel was on a final warning, escalating violence and intimidation at matches. So it does look like Israel has a pretty big problem with its football clubs having extremely violent fans. A number of incidents have involved Beitar Jerusalem, including racist abuse against overseas players, anti-Arab chants, use of smoke bombs and fireworks, and rioting. I mean, that's exactly what we saw in Amsterdam last week. Beitar has a hooligan firm, La Familia, whose members consider Israeli Arabs to be their enemy. Wow, very enlightened and accepting. Anyway, so I think that this is an extremely normal circumstance that we're seeing. This is an extremely normal thing. It's not a good thing. It's a very racist. It's a very racist activities by the Maccabi hooligans that really started this. And we can go even further back to the racist genocidal actions that Israel as a state have been doing, which have gotten a lot of attention and turned public opinion against them. And so when you send athletes representing a country to another place, and the country they're representing is not really received well in terms of public opinion, then of course you're going to get actions taken against them. In terms of hooliganism, it's not really anything special. But what I want to talk about is the response, because I think the response is extremely special. What do we get? We get the fucking president of the United States tweeting about how we need to support Israel against these anti-Jewish pogroms that are happening everywhere. So what does Biden say? The anti-Semitic attacks on Israeli soccer fans in Amsterdam are despicable and echo dark moments in history when Jews were persecuted. We've been in touch with Israeli and Dutch officials and appreciate Dutch authorities' commitment to holding the perpetrators accountable. We must relentlessly fight anti-Semitism wherever it emerges. So, once again, this is extremely one-sided, right? The president of the United States is weighing in on this soccer hooliganism conflict. Needless to mention, no one died here, where there have been deaths in the past between conflicting soccer teams. Sorry, I'm American. I'm not going to call it football. Football's something different. So there's been deaths in the past. We're not going to talk about the fact that the Israeli team was straight up chanting anti-Arabic slurs, pulling down Palestinian flags, and were violent themselves. We're not going to talk about that. We're just going to say that these poor Israelis are the victims, and they're the victims of anti-Semitic pogroms. And again, this is contributing to anti-Semitism. It's contributing to divisions between Jewish people and their neighbors. It's contributing to the belief that the Jews are controlling the media and they are an elite class above white people. And it's also contributing to the belief that Israel is representative of all Jewish people, and thus, if you don't like what Israel's doing, then maybe you're a little. Joe Biden's basically saying, if you don't like what Israel's doing, maybe you're a little bit anti-Semitic. Jake Shields, horrible person, but he does say something correct here. Now do the dead kids in Gaza. This is a complete double standard. Israel can do the most atrocious things you can possibly think of to Palestinians. But if a soccer hooligan group kind of defends their city in Amsterdam, then they get called anti-Semitic and they get labeled as doing a pogrom. I think this is interesting. We'll watch a little bit of this.
So 2 days ago, Zionist hooligans from the Tel Aviv football club, they came to Amsterdam because they had a match against Ajax. As we predicted, they were very violent. They roamed the streets with around 200 people at the same time. They would take down Palestine flags everywhere which they would see them. And we have footage of them singing a song that there are no schools in Gaza anymore because they burned all the children. Simultaneously, they also attacked a cab driver who spoke out against them. We all knew that this was going to happen because the football club already stated before the match, before coming here, that they were going to bring Israeli Secret Service, the Mossad. So we knew that they were going to be violent. And we also knew that amongst them supporters, a lot of them are IDF soldiers who have on their Facebook footage of being enlisted in the same army that's committing genocide. Who it is, we requested the municipality, the football club, to cancel the match or at least allow the supporters here. They were violent as fuck. No media outlet responded to this. The only way we know is because as a movement, we got quite good at sharing footages with each other. Back 2 days when they were being violent, the moment they harassed one of the taxi drivers, they got a response. Thing is, the taxi drivers here, as I think all over the world, are quite well connected with each other. So within no time, over 100 taxi drivers came to the city center and chased the hooligans away. Chased them towards the casino or...
Anyway, she does a pretty good job of breaking this down. And I want to bring up this clip that happened a few weeks ago.
I need to kill them all.
Can I share something that I saw last night that was pretty disturbing?
Please
as
do.
a Jewish person. So last night I was in West Hollywood, big Halloween thing down there.
Yeah.
And there was a person doing the Sig Heil in full fucking Nazi uniforms, wearing a swastika armband, and they were wearing a pig mask. Now, I don't know if they were trying to have a joke or what about this, but it was deeply fucking disturbing.
Was anyone saying anything?
Just out on the street.
I went up, and people were taking pictures next to him doing the Sig Heil.
That's crazy.
And
Dude, that is not a photo you want.
No, I got really upset and frustrated to the point where I was... there were a lot of cops around. That's all I'm going to say. But
yeah.
I went up to the motherfucker and I called him out. And
What'd you say?
I said, you are disgusting. You are the problem. This is not right. How fucking dare you do this?
And what did he say?
He just stood there and just...
Coward bitch.
It's still bumming me out and bothering the shit out of me. I have a picture.
Yeah, I was actually...
You
do?
Yeah, I was like... Because West Hollywood is like...
I just connected the dots.
Jesus, you scared me.
Pig mask. Who was in that pit behind that pig mask?
Nancy Solcycle?
Dan fucking Clancy. Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was just saying, I not that I thought you were lying, Zach, but I was just like, when you showed me the picture, I was like, oh, that...
I've never seen anything like this either.
But yeah, it really disturbed the shit out of me.
It's disgusting.
He's lucky that he didn't come across the wrong Israeli.
I mean, I don't want to get violent with people ever, and that's not my my motive. But this, there was something that was, I don't know, just wasn't right.
Well, they should go viral too. This is LA, West Hollywood. There it is. There it is, Dan. I mean, I'm actually kind of not joking right now. This is Dan Clancy. This is what Twitch is doing. It's making people feel too fucking comfortable hating Jews. I don't hate Jews. I just hate Zionists. Okay, what is a Zionist? I don't know.
A pig that should die, and they say the most vile things about Zionism.
So I don't know. Not to do the oppression Olympics with my black brothers and sisters. Did that person get busted? The blackface guy?
I would assume so. But I mean, it makes sense. Whatever ethnicity you are, you're going to see and pay attention to
right.
The specific thing that hits closer to home, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that you guys are seeing that more. Any other ethnicity are seeing that more. It's fucked up.
I never seen anything like this in my whole life.
No, it's insane.
Anyway, shout out to the pig Nazi. We love you.
I was dressed as the Joker too, so.
Dude, you had the N. You could have done anything to him.
There was sheriff's department around. I didn't want to spend the night in jail, but
Yeah, you don't need to.
Yeah.
Would have been fucking badass though.
No, stop. We're not encouraging that.
I wanted to, believe me. That
would have been sick, dude.
you did the right thing by not doing that, because you don't know if this guy has a knife or a gun.
Yeah, my life is not worth a
Not
fucking
worth
low
that.
life piece of shit.
I doubt this coward would put up a fight.
Would the
You
police
never know.
take it serious if you like?
Okay, so why has the phrase "punch a Nazi" become so popular? Well, it's because the idea behind it is that Nazis have such a disgusting ideology that there's really no kind of debating them out of those beliefs. And the main thing you need to do when someone's reached this point where they have completely dehumanized people to the extent that they want to exterminate an entire race of people based off of these imaginary boundaries that Nazis put on people. The idea is that when they've reached that point, the only thing you can do is respond with violence. You can't talk to them. You can't reason with someone like that because they've reached an unreasonable conclusion. They haven't reasoned their way there. And why do we want to meet them with violence? Well, because Nazi ideology is violent. The ideology that they're bringing is violence. And so that's where the whole idea of punch a Nazi came from. You need to respond to violent ideology with violence. That's kind of the thing. And we get an endorsement of that on this show. We get an endorsement of doing violence to extreme people, and especially the Nazis, because like they are the epitome of the extreme people, at least in the mental images we have in our head of extreme evil. So what do we get from here? We get this guy saying like, oh yeah, I should have punched him. You get Ethan saying, oh, what if he came across the wrong Israeli, which is an insane thing that's an insane thing to say. You get Gila saying, no, don't punch him. You don't know if he has a knife or a gun on him. But they're all like passively endorsing the idea that violence against someone with this extreme hatred is acceptable. So I'd like to see how they respond to this clip. And we can see that in other clips, they are chanting that they're chanting that we need to. They're chanting that there's no Palestinian children in school because all of the children are gone. Pulling down Arab flags, basically responding with Nazi or showing up with Nazi-like ideology. So I'm sorry, but if Ethan, Gila, and their producers are going to be morally consistent, they would have to endorse the violence that these Israeli hooligans were subjected to by people that organized against this violently racist group of people that showed up in their city. But we don't get that. We get Ethan labeling this response as anti-Semitic. And why is it anti-Semitic? Well, it's anti-Semitic because the people that had this Nazi-like genocidal ideology that showed up there, spewing violent intent, performing violent acts, but they happen to be Jewish. Thus, any kind of rebuke, any kind of action done to thwart what they're doing must inherently be anti-Semitic. And maybe Ethan will come into his podcast with a little bit of a more nuanced approach to this. Maybe he'll do some more research, but I really wouldn't count on it. And I just want to talk once more about real anti-Semitism and how unequipped Ethan is to deal with it. If we go back to that that clip that we watched of the H3 podcast, I won't play it again, but Ethan makes a joke about how that Nazi must have been Dan Clancy under the mask. He seems visibly actually kind of shaken about it, and he can't really deal with it. He says, oh, well, if he came across the wrong Israeli, then he would have been clocked. He says, he obviously diverts from the seriousness of the matter by saying, oh, it must have been Dan Clancy, like making a joke that it was actually Dan Clancy under the mask. And he says he's never seen something like that before. And all of this to say that Ethan hasn't experienced real anti-Semitism, and it seems like he doesn't know how to interact with it. Ethan's been in a pretty safe bubble. He's created this progressive space for himself. We even saw that he was kind of like unwilling to debate Steven Crowder, and he brought Sam Cedar on, and Steven Crowder is extremely anti-Semitic. He was making like weird jokes about Sam Cedar's eyes, then vaguely hinting at some kind of like anti-Semitism trope that he's unearthing from the grave. Is Ethan Klein going to talk about like this Joe Rogan clip where he and Theo Vaughn are talking about how the media is controlled by Jews? And I think that this is like something that Ethan is overlooking. He has this whole tirade he's been on this whole crusade against Hasan, that Hasan's causing anti-Semitism. And that's these comments, these Free Palestine comments that Ethan's getting. Because let's just be honest, he has been running defense for Israel. These are all the fault of Hasan. And essentially, that's the extent of the anti-Semitism that Ethan feels himself experiencing. And again, he doesn't like Hasan because he thinks Hasan is sending them his way. And he doesn't like people saying Free Palestine because he thinks that this whole genocide would be over if only Hamas would give back the hostages. He has a very childish view of the Israeli-Palestine situation that's happening right now. But why aren't we getting more examples of Ethan talking about true, straight-up Nazi rallies? He's been very willing and eager to criticize any kind of perceived anti-Semitism coming from the left. But has he covered these Nazi rallies? His reaction to his producer talking about how he saw a guy dress up in a Nazi uniform in LA. And Ethan's reaction to that was, I've never seen something like that before. I'm so confused. That reaction really leads me to believe that he doesn't understand that there's straight up a resurgence of neo-Nazis happening underneath Donald Trump. So we can take a look at this. February 18th, 2024, neo-Nazi rally marching in Nashville, Tennessee. August 30th, 2024, the PHRC strongly condemns the neo-Nazi weekend march in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. A neo-Nazi march in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. In June 9th, 2024, a neo-Nazi group marching in Pierre, Deadwood, South Dakota. An article in the ADL, Summer of Hate, White Supremacist Activity from Memorial to Labor Day. This is during the summer of 2024. From Memorial Day through Labor Day 2024, the ADL Center on Extremism tracked a sustained high level of white supremacist activity that included paramilitary-style marches, demonstrations, fight nights, propaganda drives, and disruption of public forums across the country. COE documented 64 white supremacist events across 25 states between May 27th and September 2nd, 2024. A majority of these events were small, with just 5 to 12 participants, but there were also larger gatherings, including one demonstration of roughly 200 participants. In 2024 and throughout the summer, white supremacists also continued to distribute propaganda material in their form of banners, flyers, graffiti, and stickers. This propaganda was primarily anti-Semitic, anti-Zionist, and anti-immigrant, with a spike in anti-LGBTQ plus activity and messaging during Pride Month in June. So, I mean, it's funny that they include anti-Zionist with anti-Semitic and anti-LGBTQ and anti-immigrant, but this is the ADL we're talking about. But I do think that this 64 white supremacist events is not really including anti-Zionist demonstrations. So there is a rise in anti-Semitism, and that's for sure. Where is this coming from? Well, Donald Trump has caused a lot of increase in anti-Semitism. He emboldens far-right groups, anti-Semitic groups. We can see this example with the Proud Boys. Let's go to...
Call them, what do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem.
So again, when Trump gets called out on his tacit support of white supremacist groups like the Proud Boys. So the Proud Boys is a North American far-right neo-fascist militant organization that promotes and engages in political violence. And we can see that the ideology, anti-communism, anti-feminism, anti-immigration, anti-LGBT, anti-Semitism, and then their authoritarian crypto-fascism, Islamophobia, Trumpism, Western chauvinism. So an anti-Semitic group, we can see this just increasing pretty much all throughout the country. And they are emboldened by Donald Trump, unfortunately. The Proud Boys are back. How the far-right group is rebuilding to rally behind Trump. And this was written in June, before Trump was even elected. So the Proud Boys were even just the potential of a Trump presidency had this group getting a resurgence in terms of members. And we can see that these far-right extremist groups are kind of picking up the pieces where there's a lot of young men being left behind by society, feeling like they have no place in society, and they're finding their homes in these extreme far-right groups. We also have just people like, Joe Rogan, Theo Vaughn, more openly expressing anti-Semitic views, anti-Semitic takes, and that's having a big impact on people. There's also a lot of blame to place on Israel in terms of the increasing anti-Semitism. Israel insists that it's representative of all Jews. It's creating a very poor name for itself. And whenever there are incidents where Israeli citizens will incite violence and then have violence done back upon themselves, or whenever there's an increase in protests about anti-Zionism, Israel will point to that and say, look at how much the world hates us. We need you. We need Jews across the world to come to Israel. Israel's the only safe place for Jews. Thus improving their standing with the United States and the UK, saying that, we are representative of all Jews. Look, you can't even defend yourself. Jews need to come here. And let's be honest, they're increasing the amount of people there, which will allow them to more easily settle Lebanon, more easily settle the West Bank, Gaza, and increase the number of people in the Israeli military. This is interesting. Israel Defense Minister Katz says Israel has defeated Hezbollah. And then there's nothing left. There's no other part of this article. So anyway, Israel's defeated Hezbollah, guys. I guess it's fine. That all being said, anti-Semitism is a real issue. We have seen a real increase in the amount of hate groups in the United States. And let's be honest, these hate groups, these Nazi rallies are not solely targeting the Jews. Anti-Semitism in America is different than anti-Semitism in Europe and the rest of the world. American racism is unique for sure, and anti-Semitism kind of gets caught up in all of the other forms of hatred that American extreme far-right groups have. The case that I'm trying to make is that Ethan's priorities are skewed. He's focused on Hasan talking about Hezbollah, Hasan talking about the Houthis. He's focused on these tweets that he's getting on his Instagram posts or his Instagram stories, calling him a Zionist, calling him a genocide supporter, just saying free Palestine. He's focused on a Houthi, or he's focused on a Yemeni teenager posting an image of a guy being executed and saying that this is what we're going to do to all Zionists. And he's seeing those as very real threats of anti-Semitism. Meanwhile, he's completely ignoring the resurgence of extreme far-right conservative groups in the United States that are being politically active, that are being emboldened by a white supremacist president who has directly supported them in the past, and that are actual real threats to people. And in a time when Ethan Klein should really be consolidating with similar progressive voices online and in his personal life, and really trying to build a broad coalition to push back against these conservative voices, he is defending a genocidal colonial state in Israel and creating division in what used to be a very, while maybe not unified, very open progressive community and broad and welcoming, and has now been cut apart and divided by Ethan Klein's antics and his inability to grapple with the atrocities that Israel is doing. And I want to finish this video off on a bright note. Jean-Marco Soresi has this stand-up act. This is one of the best 5 minutes of stand-up you'll ever see. Anti-Semitism ruined my act. Let's watch
I'm
this.
very happy to be here. I'm from New York. It's good, it's good. I get a lot of my material just from existing there. Like, this is a true story. I was on the train once in New York. There was a couple across from me. The man said to the woman, "What do you want to do for dinner?" And I swear to God, the woman said, "I think that lanky Jew is listening to our conversation." I am Jewish. Well, my name is Gianmarco Soresi. It's like my parents knew the Nazis were coming back. And I don't make a big deal out of being Jewish unless I'm losing an argument with a person of color. Because I worry that I reinforce a lot of negative Jewish stereotypes. Like I'm neurotic. Obviously, I'm cheap. But I'm also a bad driver. And I don't think it's true, but we all know that being a bad driver is more of an Asian stereotype. So listen. I like to believe that when I'm swerving all over the road, every racist driver behind me is like, "Why didn't you learn how to drive, you fucking Jew?" What if the world's more complicated than I once thought? If Jews can't merge lanes, how could they run the world? It doesn't make any sense. Obviously, Jews do not run the world. We would if we could, but we don't recruit. That's Christians. They're the ones running up to everyone, Bible in hand, like, "Have you heard the good news?" You're never going to see a Jew shuffle up to an uncircumcised guy with a scalpel like, "Have you heard the bad news?" But maybe we need to start recruiting. Because I was recently performing in Houston. I was on stage. I said I'm Jewish. Someone in the audience went, yuck. But joke's on him. That's Hebrew for great job. I do worry about this recent spike we've had in anti-Semitism. Because anti-Semitism is literally the backbone for like a lot of my jokes. It doesn't feel good as a comedian to make fun of a group when that group is already being mistreated by the rest of society. That's why we'd all feel uncomfortable if I started making jokes at the expense of black people, or at the expense of trans people. But if I shit on Italians, nobody give a fuck. Nobody give a fuck! Because they're fine! They're not being mistreated by the police. Most of them are the police. That's why you get fired for doing blackface. But if I'm like, it's a me, Mario. What, am I gonna lose a gig in New Jersey? I don't give a fuck. I just feel like if white people would stop complaining all the time about cancel culture and actually fought for racial equality, then all of us could do the Chinese accent again. My dad still does it. Every time we go to this restaurant in our neighborhood, my dad, he does this entire order in a full Chinese accent. And I know I should tell him to stop, but it's the only time I see him happy. So I don't have the heart to tell him that it's an Indian restaurant.
Anyway, I wanted to end on a pretty high note, and I really enjoyed that guy's set. I want to thank you for watching. Hopefully we can take a break from this and we can start covering some other stuff. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know what you thought down below, and everyone have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.